What is good? What is good, family? It's your boy Reckless Ray Dinero with Future Financial Strategies. Back at it again. Hitting today's topic hard. We are coming in hot. I've actually listened to this a few times, seen that a lot of people are doing reactions, so I figured since this is future-based podcast, future-based show, that we would dive into this because I've got some opinions, and it is Black History Month, and so this month, I am actually dedicating a series of live streams over on I Seen Your Little Podcast channel to a similar topic, and it kind of coincided, and it was one of the topics that I was going to delve into, which is what has history taught us, or what have we learned from history from a financial perspective. So we're going to jump right into this. I'm going to speed through this video. This is the short cut down version because just straight up my opinion on this, Roland Martin got washed completely. Issue being I don't 100% agree with Patrick Bet David's perspective on this because neither one of them have any room for nuance, and Patrick Bet David called Roland Martin out for not having room for nuance. And normally Roland Martin doesn't bring people onto his show that can actually speak to this or in any way, shape, or fashion will agree with him on anything. But Patrick Bet David, in this instance, in this destruction of this man, basically did the same thing. And like his perspective as a fan, as a person who's highly influenced by him, I don't agree with it. I don't implicitly agree with it. I agree with him to a certain extent on certain points, but the angle that he's coming at, he has zero context of what's gone on in this country. Not that that's an excuse, but when you talk about situations of tying crime back to poverty, because when I see black people in rich neighborhoods, they are not committing crime when they live there and they are rich, generally speaking. And I'm not talking about rappers, I'm talking about normal people. There is a direct correlation to poverty and crime because people aren't just out committing crime for fun. Most criminals are not committing crime for fun. Again, that's not making it an excuse. It's a pretty consistent thing across the board. The worse of an area or lower income of an area you live in, the more crime there is. Just what it is. So, we're going to dive into this because the other part of the video, this is going to be a long one today. We going all the way in because obviously we're going to do a reaction to this video. As you can see, I already did like the video and I subbed the video. Anytime I do a reaction, they're getting a like regardless of whether I sub or not. That's one thing, but I do like pretty much most of his content, but this channel is notorious for not having intelligent black people up to have these conversations that can actually have the conversation and then go into the nuance. But it wouldn't make for good content then, because then Patrick Bet David wouldn't be able to domineer the conversation, run a person into a corner and just like gut punch them until they fall out because people are trying to be right. Patrick Bet David is also trying to be right. And, from somebody who's not going to dive into any type of context and just say, hey, I made it, this is what it is, that's cool. You can do that. But we're going to go in and I'm going to give my 2 cents on this. Obviously, anyone who's seen me on a live panel knows I do lean conservative. I do not delve in the victim Olympics. I do not delve in excuses. But I also don't completely disacknowledge the stuff that's happened. And after we do the reaction, we're going to go delve into the history of things because I am a history person and I do enjoy having those conversations from that context. I find it interesting. I do not find it as an excuse. So let's have at it and see what we got going on here. This is sped up, so so that way we can get through it pretty quick.
30 cities in American crime ran by Democrats. First, I will tell you, first of all, it's where African Americans are living. So let's bring up Chicago in particular. What you have had in Chicago is you've had some of the greatest racial segregation, not in 20 years, not in 30 years, but literally in 100 plus years. No, here's the deal though. Okay, I will show you how Mississippi had the largest percentage of black people in America, run by Republicans, broke as hell. Explain that. Explain me the highest. Tell me when you have. Hold on, wait. I'm showing you. Let's stay on topic. Hold on, wait. Let's stay on topic. economic. Economics is a different story. No, it's not. But I agree with you that we need to get the financial situation. No. And you're making a mistake. Mississippi. No, you're making. No. Here's the mistake you're making. 27 out of 30. Here's the mistake you're making. When you say crime, I just obliterated a black conservative on my show on this whole issue. When you say crime, you have to then say, okay, what creates crime? No, what creates crime? What creates crime? When people are not doing well financially. What else? Your surrounding environment, who you're around. No, what else? Pick up habits. What else? Bad policies. No. What else? See, you took the policies. But it is bad policies. No.
Oh no, we're gonna have to reload it. Okay.
You play devil's advocate and flip the argument, play the Republican side, and you make one hell of an argument to be the Democrat because you can do that. You have the ability. I have the ability as well. I don't want to do that. What I'm asking you right now is the following: results today. Yes. 27 out of 30 cities. Yes. That are ran by Democrats are the highest crime in America. That's
and so this piece of it, 100% agree. You have these policies in here. You have. I mean. You have the results. Like, these people run these cities, and regardless of what anyone says, I understand that the macro, statewide, they have a say, but your city council people that you elect, those people have a say on where those funds go. They do get funds. No, there's no city that's completely gets $0. They're moving dollars around. And the people you elect are the ones who move those dollars around. So he's got a solid point here. There's not really a rebuttal to this that's going to be effective, in the sense that, as a populace, black people have heavily voted Democrat for 50 years. And we have not gotten a good deal out of that. We have not gotten results. That doesn't mean that I'm not a straight team player in any sense of the word. But I will say that as of lately, the Democratic candidates that have been affronted as an option have not been good ones in my city. So, we gotta vote them out. You gotta at least let your voice be heard locally, like the presidential election. Whatever. I can understand why people move out of that, but when people say that they're not into politics and they're not voting locally, I'm like, you're an idiot. That just makes no sense. But let's keep rolling. And so Roland is doing what a lot of very feminine males do, and they argue like women, and they make emotional pleas, use sign language, shame, insult, guilt, and the need to be right, and moving the goalpost, because like, he won't answer the question direct, and he does this the whole video. It's really sad, and what's really sad is they put this dude up as the pinnacle of the representation of black people. Like, it's ridiculous in my opinion. Like, that is definitely not the best of us, and it's just what it is. But everyone has their grift, and that's his. So let's keep moving as he continues to want to be right.
It's not the thing. The state is the community. The city is where the city you're in is what you can touch. Every year you come up and you say, re-elect me. I can help. State. Listen, I am born and raised in Texas, Houston, Clinton Park. To act as if... So forget what you're saying. Let's stop voting for mayor. Because they can't do anything. First of all, I didn't say that. Let me finish my thought. I am born and raised in Houston, Texas. Grew up in Clinton Park neighborhood. To act as if what happens in Austin does not have an impact on Houston is crazy.
It's an influence. It's not an impact. And this is one of the things that I'm not seeing spoken about. It has an influence. The different city still decides what they're doing. The city outside of your city, or even if you live in a smaller city that's a suburb of a larger city, you still get to decide what you're doing in your schools, your neighborhood, your city. You vote those people in for a reason. They allocate those funds. Like, this spreading of the guilt, or not wanting to take accountability or hold your people that you vote in accountable, is unacceptable. It's not a winning strategy. It's not going to yield us any type of result that we want long term. Because we've been doing this for how long? Oh, well, this other place. Oh, well, somebody else. Oh, it's not the party that we voted for. And it's like, literally, yes, it is. Those people pass those bills. If they want to be influenced by a city that's outside of your city and they're not representing you, then you don't vote for them. This is not hard. Not hard. keeping it moving.
You're making excuses now. No, I'm not. I'm making excuses. Okay, here's the deal.
Yes, he is, and he got busted, and that's why his voice got high. You heard him. No, I'm not. Yeah, he knows he got busted. He is literally making excuses. PBD is spot on in this, and he pinned it down, and he did not let him run off this topic. Like, he didn't let him move it away. Like, I applaud him for being able to speak directly. I am really upset that Roland Martin isn't able to acknowledge the decisions he's making, because I don't necessarily disagree empirically with his point. I disagree with the way that he's going about, quote unquote, fixing it. Because if all you're doing is the same thing you've always done and it's not working, you're basically a woman who's in an abusive relationship that refuses to leave. Because you're going, oh, well, we gotta stay with these guys that are doing stuff that's making things less safe for us, less beneficial for us, making it harder for us to get ahead. And you'll notice another thing that you notice about these people on both sides, because I have beef with both black conservatives and black liberals, because it's always just one guy who's rich. Roland is rich on his own. I'm taking care of mine. But he says he cares about the community. Now, I don't necessarily personally believe in the community concept. I do not. But he says he believes in the community, but it's always just Roland Martin. Roland Martin's the only rich person in his circle. He doesn't live in a black neighborhood. And we're going to get into that moving forward. He specifically moved out of that neighborhood, and he's still not even surrounded. He didn't move with some homies from said neighborhood. He's the only one who made it. One person. How are we going to move forward if it's just an errant one-off of us that got lucky? Out of a bad environment that is orchestrated and contrived to keep us in said position. How are we going to do that? Because he's running with just him. I'm willing to bet that outside of the punditry, Roland Martin doesn't have a circle of people that, like, they're doing business together and they're all winning together. It's just about Roland and just about Roland eating. Roland's eating at a table by himself while the people that he says he cares about are starving to death. While he's telling them to continue to vote in a fashion to make them starve to death faster. Based on the results, not the team. But I digress. Let's keep going.
Here's the deal. See, it's real easy to say it's excuses when I'm stating facts. And the point I'm stating is...
That's not a fact. That's just an opinion.
No, it's a fact. The state of Texas significantly has an impact economically, educationally, on what happens in Houston. That's a fact.
Yeah, but
as somebody who, as a kid, traveled with my mom to rallies and events with the Metropolitan Organization in the state capitol, I understand.
And see, this is the other thing. He is unable to even admit, like, what he just said right there. As a kid, he was traveling to rallies. Like, this dude's been complaining and expecting someone else to fix his problem, Mr. Roland Martin. You've been expecting someone to fix your problem since you were a child. You were indoctrinated into a system where the only agency you had was crying. That I can't get with. You came up in a space where the only agency y'all had was crying. Somebody else has to come fix this mess. Now, did we necessarily make the mess? We were helped to make the mess. But we were the ones who are, it's on us to fix it. Like, yeah, we can go and cry in the streets for a little bit, whatever. Some of y'all gonna do that. I understand. There's just some pre-genetic low testosterone having crybabies, and they're gonna cry. And we can let them do that. We can walk and chew gum. But for real, those of you who are looking to do the work, let's do the work. Build wealth. Don't build wealth just for yourself. Like, build wealth together. Get you and your squad and cultivate your circle, your network. And I'm not necessarily even saying that it has to be people that look like you, because, like I said, I don't believe in the whole community thing. But, like, people that are rocking in the same direction and are trying to progress forward, link with those people. Do business with those people successfully where everybody eats and it's not just one of you. So that you'll continue to be incentivized to do business together. And the reason I'm willing to bet that this man, Roland Martin, does not have a circle like that, because everything that he does is self-centered. He was traveling around with his mother. He had both parents in the house, but he was traveling around and complaining with his mom. Like, there wasn't, there doesn't seem to be. I'm not going to say that there wasn't, because I don't know this man's upbringing. I know where he's at now. And, you know, he's not a man that would be around in my circle. Like, he would get his feelings hurt regularly around the men that I'm around, because they're men through and through. But what I'm saying is this whole ideology that someone is going to fix this for us. Like, we were put in this mess. I can 100% get behind that. But, like, what's the incentive of fixing it? Like, if I've never punched somebody and then been like, man, let me unpunch you. I'm going to fix this. Ever. like, they're lucky if I, like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, if you're going to have that doomer dynamic that it's us against the world, then have that dynamic that it's us against the world, and let's start throwing some punches back. The way that we do that is to financially establish ourselves, make better financial decisions, stop relying on the government that is out to get us, quote unquote. I'm making the hardest air quotes right now. Stop participating in systems that are set up to imprison, incarcerate, and enslave us, which means we got to stop going to jail and committing crimes. Because that system is, you want to talk about systematic oppression? 100%. That system systematically oppresses people because you are at the behest of a person. Until they put some sort of AI, some sort of cyborg, cyber judges, something that's not people in those positions, or until we can have a separate jury that is of people that look like you and not just other humans. Because right now, a jury of your peers is just other humans. Your peers are your other humans as far as the courts are concerned. Granted, those peers could be racist. Your judge could be racist. Matter of fact, factually, some of them judges are racist. Like, they are giving longer sentences to people of color. But the fix for that is, don't be in a position to get sentenced. Because in order for you to get sentenced, you had to have done something. Because last I checked, I, who don't have a criminal record already, am not getting picked up by the cops when I leave my house. I know other people with criminal records that are out here grinding, getting it, that are not getting picked up by the cops every day. That are making good money. They're getting to the bag, keeping their head down, minding their business. Trying to, you know, be a part of society. They're not sitting out here getting picked up breaking laws and then wondering why they're getting longer sentences. Like, yes, the system's racist, but like, also don't break laws, because if you're not participating in said system, then you don't run into those issues. But I digress. Let's keep it moving.
Did you grow up rich? Who? Did you grow up rich?
No, my parents didn't go to college.
How are you rich now?
What do you mean how?
How are you rich?
Here's how. Because
how are you
no,
rich?
no, here's how.
Yeah.
Because first and foremost, the neighborhood that I grew up in it was one of the first master plan communities by a hood. What you had in my neighborhood was you had folks. First of all, I had mom and dad, who also married, who also, hell yeah, they're still married for 6 years. Who absolutely believed in education. Now, what I recognize is, so for me, in my household, what my parents emphasized, never went to college. Then my brother went to Texas A&M. I went to Texas A&M. My sister went to Texas A&M.
This is the last thing that I've ever heard an actual rich person say. Ever. In my existence. And I'm in my career around rich people. And none of them have recited this version of this story. Like, this is... I don't know if it's because when we get to this historical aspect that, like, they just didn't have that wealth generation or that mindset still prevalent within the community because of the things, quoting for Roland Martin, systemically that had happened that took away a lot of the entrepreneurs, a lot of the business owners, and a lot of the people who actually knew how to build wealth and how money worked. But I've literally never talked to a wealthy person and been like, how'd you get wealthy? And they were like, I went to college. Like, that's like the biggest... I mean, I can reference 10 wealthy people and like none of them are... They're like, I was going to college and I figured something else out. And then I started making more money than what I was going to be getting paid to... So I paid my college debt off and stopped going. or I didn't go at all and built something. But like he never throughout this interview explains or details how he gets rich. And I think it's because how he got rich was grifting. He's a race grifter. If all you doing is complaining about the man, but you living in the neighborhood with him, then it's kind of making me wonder. It's like, are these people propped up just to seed this consistent victimization of a populace to keep them where they're at? It makes me wonder. It's like, where does your money come from, bruh? Like, because you didn't want to dive into it, but you said you own a business, but like you didn't want to dive into the specifics with somebody who is very successful at business, and like you kept dodging this question the entire time, and it was very disappointing. So I'm actually gonna speed through this because like I don't even want to hear this. I ain't got time for it. I've heard it too many times, so we're gonna skip ahead a little bit. Let's see what we got.
Consistently are these very issues. I don't sit here and go do doom and gloom. First of all, every single Tuesday on my show, I feature actual black-owned businesses. Every single Wednesday.
Hold on a second. So we gotta go back a little bit. Oh, here we go. Yeah, where Patrick gets back on him. Let's go.
Exact same setup, the same situation. What I'm talking about, and this is again.
But why not give that story of inspiration to say you can get out of it?
First of all, you say why not? I'm sorry. You clearly have never watched my show when I talk about.
Okay, so every Tuesday he does feature black businesses, which is dope. You know, like that's cool. That's one day. That's one day where it's featured, and then most of it is we are victims. Like he gets on panels and we are just victims. Like regardless of how he approaches it, it's like the way that he frames his arguments, like they sound good, and literally if you're looking for an excuse, you can listen to Roland Martin and get a handful of them. Like he'll just hand them to you like candies, or like he's like a little grandma with them little strawberry candies in her purse, and he just hands them to you one at a time, and he'll just keep giving them to you until you're fat and sick. Probably like him. So he got a little pot belly on him, just calling it what it is. But not a personal attack. Dude's just not in shape. It's what it is. Another problem within the community. But I would venture to say that the less shape you're in as a man, the more you're going to complain. I'm not going to lie. Like every time I've crossed a panel with one of the social justice warriors that's just, we're being victimized and the man's holding us down, they're never in good shape. They're just not. I don't know. It seems like could tie back to low testosterone. I don't know, but they're not competitors, and yeah. So rolling on with Roland Martin.
About consistently are these very issues. I don't sit here and go do doom and gloom. First of all, every single Tuesday on my show, I feature actual black-owned businesses. Every single Wednesday, I feature African Americans who are tech companies. Every Friday, I actually feature something called Education Matters, folks who are in the education space, school choice. I got HBCU Connect. So I do all that. But one second.
But you know why I said that? Let me tell you why I said that. Because you said I'm not the one that says, look at me, I got out, so can you. That's what you said.
No. Here's why I say that. Because it is arrogant when, as an individual, I'm assuming everyone else's situation is the same. That's first. Two, it's also arrogant to then not actually study and look at how, from a macro level, see, you're describing a micro level. There's always, you can always have that singular individual, or this person, or that person, or this family. That's micro. What I'm talking about is macro issues. And what I'm saying is, when I look at communities, that's not micro, that's macro. Even within the African American community, when you dealt with Jim Crow, you couldn't live anywhere else. You literally could not live anywhere else.
So these are solid points. He leaves out a few very solid points that he should have divulged that he didn't, and it's because when you only speak on these topics with black people, you can stop at the base level of the excuse because black people are just going to agree more often than not. Because it's easier to take the excuse. But he's got some solid points. It's just the way that he's framing these arguments is not going to get his point across because he's used to just talking to people that agree with him or bringing people into his sphere that don't agree with him and having his arguments pre-made and pre-ready to argue with them about these topics. And he bullies them in his space. His issue is he went to another person's space who is also a bully in that regard. Like he's got his topic, he's got his stance, he's got the way that he believes and looks at things. And you can look at his PBD's channel, like there ain't a whole lot of color on that channel. Like he doesn't really have people in that ecosystem. Basically they're all white or passing as white. Yeah, we're just gonna call it what it is. So he went into an ecosystem where this person does speak well, has his opinions, and then he isn't able to substantiate his arguments, and he's going top level, which would work for a white person who feels bad about themselves, or somebody who is very left leaning and sympathetic to the plight, or black people. And these don't go over well if you're not able to substantiate your point or willing to go into the nuance. But the thing is, Patrick Bet David is also not trying to go into the nuance. He's just grilling him to substantiate his point, and he's not doing that, which is why he got obliterated in this exchange. Like it just wasn't even this is such a one-sided fight. It's ridiculous.
Bottom line is, if you were black and had money, and then you were black and broke, you were literally living in the same neighborhood. After Jim Crow age with integration, what then happened? Those African Americans who were middle class or middle class began to move away.
Just like every other culture does now. I don't see rich white people living around poor white people. Ever. Matter of fact, I don't see rich people living around poor people, period. They don't want them around. Like me personally, I try to live as far away from the poor people as I can. Like I want people that are maybe at the bottom of my tax bracket, but like I don't want to be below that. I don't want to be around those people. Personally. It's not safe. It's just what it is. Every culture does this. Like he acts like trailer parks don't exist or there are millionaires living in trailer parks. I mean, sure, you could find one off, but like we could also reference one off where the rich black person lived in the neighborhood, Nipsey Hussle. They killed him. So, like as he said, you can do a one off, but he's making this sound as though black people are the only ones who move out of the hood. White people move out of the trailer park too. I know some that got out, didn't go back, don't go back. So there's no reason to be there. Okay, moving on.
What then began to happen was you had areas where poverty increased even more so.
Why move away though? Why move away? Because if you care about the community, why not stay there and change it? Well,
So hold on, we're gonna go back because we got to highlight this one because he just dropped a whole. Patrick Bet David just dropped a whole ball right here.
What happened was you had areas where poverty increased even more so.
why move away though? Why move away? Because if you care about the community, why not stay there and change it? Well,
First of all, does anybody else move?
what do you mean?
Who the hell else don't move? How do you think suburbs were created?
Oh, wait a minute.
What do you mean? How do you think white flight was created? So everybody else get moved, but we can't move.
No, but if you act like you care about the community,
No,
as much
guess
as
what?
you stay
No,
there.
no, but I answer your question. Do you know why? Because when African Americans living in black neighborhoods,
Yeah.
they also had economically depressed housing values, and the reality is they were not able
Change
to.
it. Help change it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I am. I am.
Okay,
I'll give you an idea.
So I understand where the outrage in this comment came from. Literally, Patrick Bet David's family left a whole ass country to move to America because things were so bad there that they didn't want to fix there. They didn't want to fight in the army there. He came and served here. So like he's not going back to Iran to fix Iran. Why is he expecting us to live in a toxic environment? Like that's such a disingenuous statement, and it was the most frustrating thing he said this entire interview, especially coming here as an immigrant. But it's the immigrant mindset. So let's talk about when Patrick Bet David came to America. They were not segregated when they came to America because Iranians get to be white I'm pretty sure they don't have a checkbox. So they came here as white people. They did not experience having to have separate banking. They weren't riding on the back of any buses. They did not experience Jim Crow. So they skipped a bunch of stuff that historically we had been dealing with, which, again, not an excuse, but it's a just disingenuous statement to be like, oh, well, why don't you just go live in those neighborhoods and fix it? Like, why don't you just go to Iran and fix that? Like, what's the difference? Like, you literally got on a plane to come here. We're talking about moving across town to where the property value is better. We're at least within the same country, which, in all honesty, like, I don't know that, at this point, it's like, with the way that things are running here, it's almost free agency time anyway. Like, like, if you have the means to, it's probably a better bet to have something secondary set up for when this collapses, because we're gonna argue about this, and the people who want these crazy radical policies are probably gonna get their way, and society collapses. So like then he's gonna have to get on another plane because he doesn't want to fight for here, because it's going to be such a toxic environment that you're going to judge that this isn't even worth fighting for. I'm going to go immigrate and be a refugee somewhere else, wherever's taking American refugees because they feel bad for us, which probably won't be anywhere because everyone's going to hate us by then. But that statement of, oh, well, like, why don't you just go fix it? It's like, how did your family get here, bro? They weren't just fixing shit. Like, I don't understand how that becomes an argument. Like, you can be as pro-American as you want to articulate, but like, to make a statement like that when your parents didn't want you to have to serve in a military to fight a fruitless battle that they didn't deem worthy of fighting. So they left that country, went to another country, sat there for a little while, then came to America. Why didn't you fix the country that you were in? How did you get here? Somebody made some decisions because there were better opportunities. It's safer. You can't look, and like, you've talked about Nipsey Hussle. You can't look at a situation like that and then ask another black person like, "Oh, you're rich. Why don't you live there where they just killed this other rich guy that was trying to help them?" That is ignorant and disingenuous. And I'm not gonna play the race card with you. I will just say that that's the most ignorant thing that I've ever heard Patrick Bet David say in my existence. And like, these people never have these conversations with intelligent black people that can actually articulate and do the ebb and flow and give and take, because I'm not voting for Democrats either. But I'm not so conservative that I'm not going to call that bullshit out, because none of the other black conservatives are going to fucking dial in on that. And it's 100% disingenuous BS, that specific statement, because you're not going back to Iran to fix Iran, and you're rich now. So no, we're not doing that. Like, I'm not letting that one slide. We're gonna plant the flag firmly on that all day, every day, because like, the fact that you're championing another country that's not even the country you were born in, that's the end of that argument as far as I'm concerned. Like, that's a non-starter. It's a really terrible straw man to say that when, like, you're not fixing that situation, because they could use some help and you're not helping. So,
Are you familiar with Palmdale?
I'm gonna need you to be drug tested. Seriously.
Yeah.
Do you even know today? We've done the stories in Florida. When somebody's black selling their house, the appraisers will come in and literally give them a value of.
and then we're following up with a secondarily ignorant argument from Roland. I was like, so mad. This was such a hard interview to watch, because while this is correct, it's a mere inconvenience to take those pictures down during the appraisal. And like, in all honesty, working in new home construction and doing remodels and being in that field from a home automation perspective, most of these houses are staged neutral anyways. There's not a picture of anyone in any house, including the white people. They're not putting their pictures up either, because it affects your offers. If you have your pictures up, period, and the people see it and they see that you're old, they might you might get more lowball offers. If they see that you're young, they might try to take advantage of you that way, and that could lead an older person to give you a lowball offer. So the way that they're doing this now is no one has pictures up for the open house. Period. Like, no one does. Everyone takes it down. You get the walls as naked as possible. You neutral art. But I mean, I don't know exactly what black art is. Like, if it's art, that could be anybody, I guess, unless it's like African kings or something. I guess if you had a house full of African king art or African queen art or warrior queen art or whatever modern women are putting on the walls nowadays, I'm gonna guess that in that scenario they would make a judgment. But most art, like, I don't, it's just art. People aren't paying attention to that, but people are across the board taking their pictures off the wall. Everyone's being inconvenienced, not just black people. But is it fair? No. Is there a way around it? 100%. There's a way to fix that. I'm just saying, like, it's an inconvenience, but considering everyone's doing it now, it's what it is. So now nobody knows who owns what. So you can do that.
To $300,000 less because they're black? Middle Eastern, right? You're trying to. Hold on, you said you're Middle Eastern, right?
Yes.
How would you feel? How would you feel
Yes.
if you're selling your home?
The and this whole your Middle Eastern shit, dude. This is it cracks me up when people that pass for white have to regularly tell you that, like, there's something else too. Like, if you gotta tell me so that you can act like you had the same struggle or something similar to the same struggle, bruh, that's the weakest cope ever. Like, you're not garnering any points, because outside, like, no one is gonna identify that until you speak. And, like, I've heard him go in about how he had an accent and people didn't want to do business with him because he had an accent. And I was like, at least you got to have the conversation, my friend, because they can see every bit of blackness on me and any other person who looks any different than white before they even get to the conversation. So you at least got to have the conversation. Everyone else didn't even get in the door. So, you know, you can rock with that how you will. But I don't think that you get a pass to just willy-nilly judge people because you had an inkling of what historically has garnered hatred and disrespect for a different group, when you didn't experience none of that. None of the people from your country were a part of that. None of them helped with that. And usually when y'all get here, you are aligned on the opposite side of that. And that's coming from somebody who agrees with you. I'm just saying, we can walk and chew gum. Like, I don't have to implicitly agree with anybody. I still love Patrick Bet David, love most of his content. But when you're wrong, you are wrong. And that's two things that I feel that he's wrong about.
You got a home that you know.
Right. You hooked up.
Okay, we're gonna skip through this part.
Oh my
Out of
God.
1,000 appraisals, how many?
1 second. I'm going to show you how it impacted. I'm trying to get rid of it.
Okay, good for you. I am as well. We have the wrong guy here. And here's what I mean by that. So, when you ask the question, what do you do if they praise your house $350,000 less? Right? That's your question. Okay. I don't see myself as a victim. I stopped looking at myself as a victim a long time ago. And by the way, being Armenian and Assyrian, you know what a lot of people in the Armenian community do? You know what a lot of people in the Armenian community do? They sell victimhood mentality.
I agree with him on this, but I don't feel like it's the same in regards to the country that are the Armenian and Assyrian communities aren't in, because Armenians and Assyrians don't come here as Armenian and Assyrians outside of their accents when they speak. Anyone looking at you across the street or you crossing the street is going to see a white person. They're not going to go look at that Armenian or Assyrian. I've literally never heard that. I've literally never heard someone scream some racist stuff out of the car at an Armenian or an Assyrian ever. unless they were in some sort of garb that alerted people that they were Middle Eastern. But if they're wearing just like if they try to blend in, then they can assimilate. We'll just put it that way. As long as they're not talking to people. But like people get like hit by vehicles, run over, screamed at, stuff like that for being black all the time, because like you can tell like immediately by looking at them, and like it's an American thing because like that's the level of ignorance that we have here. But the Americans, if you look similar to them and you don't have an afro, they're gonna assume you're white unless you talk. That's a cultural thing. It's the way it is, and I understand that like you might not understand that, Patrick, but like it's a thing. Like Americans are kind of dumb when it comes to some stuff like that. Like they don't try to identify where people are from, so that they can hate them. You have to give them something for them to understand why they hate you.
Raised with that, which is the statement of Mechka. I know you don't know what the word Mechka means. Mechka means, oh, poor Roland, oh, poor PBD. I don't see myself as a victim. And the other part is when you use one story as an example to divide and get people even angrier.
Totally agree with this. The one story example, definitely can understand that. I can definitely get behind that, and a lot of people do it. A lot of people don't even know the actual story, which was why when he asked about the report and where he got it from, and Roland didn't, because like TLDR, too long, didn't read. Basically, you see the headline, you run with the headline, and to heck with everything else.
Because out of 1,000 appraisals, this happened one time. I don't think you're unified when you say a statement like that to say, hey, this is what's taking place all the time. But going back to it, so
between 2013 and 2021 present evidence of a persistent, widespread practice in the home appraisal in identical housing stock.
I am refusing to constantly have people give data without me having access to the entire thing, just for their own benefit to divide.
So what you're saying is, in order for you need access to the 47.
I don't understand how they argued this long about just taking some pictures off the wall. You stage a house neutral. This is a known. That's how you get the best appraisal price. It's a neutrally staged house. It's what it is. How that works. The back and forth, like, it's just like neither, like, Roland just doesn't want to acknowledge, like, oh, well, this inconvenience is just totally unacceptable. And you know what? In some worlds it might be, but like, if you're trying to capture that extra $100,000 to $300,000, just take the pictures off the wall. Like, stage your house neutrally. Call it a day. You're moving anyway. You're trying to move. Like, everything, in my opinion, if I was getting ready to move out of my house, everything would be off the wall and the holes would be plugged anyway. That would be part of the touch-up, is nothing goes on the wall. As much stuff into storage as possible, and we're living bare minimum until it's time to move. I would not need my pictures up on the... Like, who are these people? It just sounds incredibly entitled and lazy to me over something that, technically speaking, like, if you're selling your house or you're getting ready to move, just take the stuff down. Like, I don't even have pictures up on my walls. Like, that's the thing that's crazy. Like, I'm thinking about it now, and I'm like, do people still do this? This sounds like an old person thing. Like, but it is what it is. Let's keep it rolling.
Million home appraisals. I'd love to see yourself. Well, first of all, we see data out there, but what I'm saying, I'm looking at data, actual data, and I'm also looking at a reality. And here's what I'm saying to you. And again, this is what...
And I feel like Roland is right in the sense that he is looking at a reality, but his reality is tinged into the Victim Olympics. And like, as much as I hate to say it, because like, you can have points and then you just run with those couple of points, and like, it's a difference between acknowledging what has happened, and I think this is the issue where this conversation breaks down. And we're going to go ahead and stop here for the video reaction part. This is where this conversation breaks down. I've said it a million times. We can walk and we can chew gum at the same time. This conversation breaks down in the sense of people using what has happened that hasn't happened to them. Now, Roland's different. He old and Santa Claus-like. So some of this stuff actually might have happened to him, or he got to see or experience like one thing away from this happening to him. Because Roland Martin's probably about my mom's age, and like my mom had experienced some egregious stuff when I was a child that I'm just like, that's unacceptable. So technically speaking, this stuff did happen to him. The issue is it's all these old dudes that this stuff did happen to that they never got any type of vindication or any type of action back. It's like I grew up fighting. Like the first kid that said something racist to me, I beat him up. And that I've been keeping it rolling ever since. Like you ain't coming up in my space and saying anything you think you're gonna say to my face. Like that's just I'm a grown man. I'm a man. I carry myself as a man. I've carried myself as a man since I was, I'd say, man age. Like very early. Like I'm a single child, single mother, and I grew up in a worse situation than Roland. And like for some odd reason, like that generation, with the exception of my family, because this was common in other people's families, because when other black people, when I was growing up, their parents, other black kids' parents, saw how I interacted with white people, they were like, you can't talk to them like that. I was like, I'll talk to anybody how I want. Period. Like, but to the core of my being, I would rather be off this planet than walk around with my tail in between my legs and end up like a Roland Martin who's in this perpetual cycle of victimhood because they weren't willing to fight, because they weren't willing to do what was necessary to defend themselves and to defend their manhood and their families or whatever else they needed to do. It's just they had, like, older people in the community, man, they have this survivor mentality where it's like somebody literally has to come save them because they never got to defend themselves. And we're gonna go into the history of why. But that's another nuance that I think is a little bit different. Like I would love to have this conversation with Patrick Bet-David, because it would be a totally different conversation, because like I can agree with him on like everything but 2 points, and I'd be like, you know, like you are off horribly here and here. But, like, the rest of it, like, let's keep it pushing. Like, you're right. I don't vote for these people either. Like, you're right. We've gotten 50 years of bad results. I would say we haven't even gotten 50 years of bad results. We've gotten 50 years of negative results. Because, like, and this is the other thing. Conservatives don't even care about the intent of these policies, because they don't look at things, because they can't think. And, yeah, like, while they're more pragmatic and supposedly more logical, they're not critical thinkers. These are not points that are talked at from a critically thinking perspective, because if you want to break down liberal policy, you can tell what the intent of a policy is by the outcome. And the fact that nobody looks at, we are looking at the outcome. But if you want to dial down, like you look at, I mean, quick one, welfare. You have to skip 2 income brackets for it to be beneficial for you to not be on welfare. What's the intent of that? It's not meant to be gotten off of. You also have to remove the father from the home. What's the intent of that? Well, statistically, we know that a single mother household, especially if you're raising a little boy, in most cases, not mine specifically, but in most cases, you are breeding someone who is going to be a slave in prison. What's the intent there? I don't know. Like, maybe if we actually started breaking down some of these and thinking about them critically, but you've got a populace that is a majority in a survivor mindset that are passing down generational curses via bad health, bad wealth management, bad income management, like bad work ethic, like a bunch of stuff, poverty mindset, victim mindset, like I could go on. And then you have these people that are just like, oh, well, like, you should bootstrap. You got to bootstrap. And, like, correct, you do. But then the flip side of that is, well, this, and this happened, and, like, you know, these people were set back, and then you have people who come to this country that had none of the things that were originally setting back a populace to create these pockets of poverty, where, luckily, every once in a while will spurt out some. Thank God for the internet, because That excuse has been taken away. So now we don't have to have that conversation. That's one of the things we left in 2022. But acknowledging how somebody got to somewhere is okay also. You can go, yes, this happened. I need you to acknowledge that this happened. That doesn't make it an excuse. That isn't even a capitulation. But like the reality of it is, if you want to get technical, this government owes black people money. And we're going to go ahead and get into that. So, what we've got here, and so I'm not starting this list at the top. I'm starting this list from when my great grandmother, who I did know personally, was born. 1901. As we scroll down this list of expulsions, where basically anytime a white person died, they blamed a black person for it and basically lynched some people and kicked them out of town. This is the precursor. So we're going to look at this laundry list of expulsions. This is starting in February 20th, 1901. Jeez. That's this month, 1901. And I'm not gonna read every single one of these, but it's you can just take some random ones. Like some of these, like Joplin, Missouri, right? White residents drove black residents out of town following the lynching of a black transient for the murder of a white policeman. Okay, I've been to Joplin. It's in the state that I used to live in, and now it's the state that's next door to the state that I live in. But I've been to Joplin. Not good vibes down there. I could definitely see them having done this in 1903 because they're still living out the programming that they have. It's a very interesting town. Don't go there. There's nothing good there. They have a Walmart. The Walmart's cool. Everything else about that place, well, the Vietnamese Catholic Church, that place is cool. Carthage is cool right outside of Joplin. Actually, it's the Walmart in Carthage that's cool. It's not even the Walmart in Joplin. Like Joplin is not the spot. Like that place sucks. So if you're from Joplin, I'm sorry. Hope you're not racist. Harrison, Arkansas. You see, I mean, this is all over the place. Obviously, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And this one is actually, this isn't even an expulsion. Like, this was their town. And it's the most known one, the Greenwood, Massacre of Greenwood, where the government allowed farmers to get in planes and drop bombs on houses, and the police assisted by taking away all the weapons from the people who had the houses so they couldn't defend their property. And then they came back and started massacring them and running them out of town, killing people who were pillars of said community and the builders of said community. So if you have the people who know how the money works and know how to generate wealth and own things being murdered, like I don't think Patrick Bet David went through this, or his family went through this in America specifically. Some stuff like this I could see happening in Iran. Actually, I could see this happening in any of the war-torn countries, honestly, over their tribal wars or whatever. Well, you know, we lived through one, just saying, and we like stayed in this country. So, you know, I don't know. I don't think Patrick Bet David would be Patrick Bet David if he was in Iran. That's all I'm saying. Blandford, Indiana. Yeah, and this goes all the way up to 1954. 1954. 1954. This was still going on. So you had that. So you had people getting run out of town. So then what do? We had to set up our own townships, right? Because white people didn't want us living in their towns. So that's what we did. Because, you know, we gonna survive. What? And then what did they do? They went and burnt down the towns. This also didn't happen to Patrick Bet David's family when they came to America. Their house never got burnt down, and then when they went and got run out of town, they burnt that house down too. Like, I mean, if there was ever a story of we can't have shit, this is the story. Like, it's, and again, this is not an excuse for. Hold on, let me redo this. This is not an excuse for the lack of productivity of someone today. It's not. 100% not. The issue is if you're passing down, and like anyone who's in finance that isn't completely an idiot, period, knows that there are such things as a poverty mindset. It happens to white people and black people and all people, Syrians, Assyrians, Iranians, Afghanistanis. All people can have it. Poverty mindset. One of the first things that you got to break in your mind in order to amass wealth. Okay, so that's a mindset. We know that that exists. Now, you have taken a population where you literally murdered the people who knew about wealth. So where are you learning about wealth if they just keep killing all the people who know how to own stuff and build things? That's my first question. Because we can look at history. Mao's China. Remember what happened when they killed the farmers and everyone starved to death under communism? You remember that? Because like we talk about that all the time. But for some reason, when it comes to black people, killing all the rich people, there's just supposed to be another influx of rich people to teach these poor black people how to exist, the ones who survived. Yeah, it doesn't make sense now, does it? With the conservative, consistent argument about communism and Stalinism. I mean, we can look at that too. They killed all the rich people too. Like, it yields bad results. You have generations of poverty mindseted people who don't even have like a reference point for how to build anything. And you wonder why now you look at a culture of people who are more interested in looking rich than being rich, who pride themselves on news reports that black people are the biggest consumers, as though that is a good thing. That is a terrible thing for a culture, but nobody wants to have that conversation. The biggest consumers. You buy everything. In the most debt, buying everything. Own nothing. Makes no sense. But Colfax, Louisiana was one. And this is going to be, I think it's like 5 or 6. But there were like 16 of these cities that were burnt down. Wilmington, North Carolina. And these are in the 1800s. These are before my great-grandmother was born. This one was. This one was too. And then we get down, Atlanta Massacre, 1906. My great-grandmother was 5. She's passed away now. But Elaine, Arkansas, 1919. Rosewood, Florida, 1923. And then you also have Greenwood. So what I'm saying is, and like I said, this is not, I do not believe that this is something that is an excuse for the reason we're in the situations that we're in. But from a historical standpoint, the other thing that was left out of this was black people didn't used to be able to go to banks. White banks. We had to have separate banks. The thing that was done in banks, because generally speaking, these were local banks, like in the beginning of banks, the bank kind of seeded the wealth of the neighborhood the said bank was in. So if the bank was in a white neighborhood, for instance, it would give loans for white houses. It carried all the loans. It gave loans to the farmers in the rural area that were around the bank. It cycled the money in that neighborhood. Black people, once being convinced to put their money in banks in their neighborhoods because they had to have a separate bank, the banks weren't allowed to loan them money or help do any infrastructure projects within said neighborhood that the bank exists. It's a black bank, but like they got to go loan money to the white area to put more wealth into that area. So it was literally used, for those of you who are not familiar, fractional reserve banking, they don't have to keep your deposits. They loan them out. They have to keep, I think it's like 1/10. So for every $10 you have sitting in the bank, they get to loan out 9 to someone else. Now, currently, in current circumstances, this money flows around. There's no, as long as you qualify for the loan, they basically have to give it to you. So the money circulates everywhere. So this is not a now issue. But during this time period, as black people were building wealth, having jobs, figuring out how to save money, like trying to do the things that you would do to bootstrap yourself and have a good life, like the conservatives like to tell us. All of their money went into these banks that were loaning money into white neighborhoods. Now, when the depressions came around, the black banks also collapsed. The reason the black banks collapsed, though, it's an interesting story. So, first of all, you have a black bank. It's not run by black people. The person who sits on that bank is an assigned white man. Most of these banks, when they went under, there was no money in them. That's right. These white bank presidents not only siphon the money off into the white neighborhoods via loans to like get them, they literally stole these people's money. Because this is when you literally put physical things in the bank. And they looted them. The white people. The government assigned person. So then the governments came back around and the FDIC did not cover those banks. Like, even when they had better balance sheets than the white banks that they were covering. So that white banks could go buy them out. So, like, now the black bank that was built gets bought out by the white bank. And now you're just putting your money in the white bank. So these are the types of things that, like, Patrick Bet-David either is willfully ignorant of, or he just doesn't know because he's not from this country. So it's not really his problem. And I understand that. But when you're consistently undermining a whole people group for hundreds of years, and then taking out, I mean, we've had multiple waves of, I mean, Jim Crow literally was a thing. The removal of the black men from the home. So, like, now you've destabilized the home structure. You can't just go back and be like, oh, well, I just don't understand why everybody's not doing this because I came to this country and I had a hard time and my family's not rich and I made it. Like, yeah, that's true. Guess what, Pat? I'm going to make it too. But the reality of the situation is you skipped a whole line of getting messed with. Like, no one here cares about Assyrians. No one here cares about Iranians. Except for, like, obviously racist people and probably people in the military because, like, y'all fought a whole war against them. But nobody cares about those people groups because basically you blend in and it's not an affront to a person who does carry a certain level of hate in their hearts. It doesn't make them feel some type of way just seeing you exist. Because they don't know you exist, because, as I stated earlier in the video, Americans, the racist white ones, are pretty ignorant, and, like, you gotta give them an accent or something so that they know you're not on their team, buddy. Like, that's all I'm saying. And so, like, when I look at this, and my reference point for this was, for me personally, what I take away from this is, we didn't come from poverty. We had people who were highly astute, highly capable, very ingenuitive. There's no other people group, including Assyrians, including Iranians, that are more resilient than we are. There isn't. Period. In my opinion. The issue is we've been sold a complete lie, and we are not taking any agency in the outcomes that we're having or the decisions that we're making and how we're navigating. And it starts in your home. So it does start very micro. Micro actions over a macro create macro results. I look at this and it is upsetting to me, but none of these things happen to me personally. And me personally, like, I've grown up living my life as I believe a man should. Like, you ain't saying anything to me without us having some sort of result about it. So, like, I don't have that victim mindset that these older generations of people have. The issue is the younger generations will read this or look into this history and just be upset and be like, oh, well, this is why I'm where I'm at, and not go, oh, I have the ability in my genes to not be where I'm at because these people did it under much worse conditions. I mean, we just got to get our fight back. That's all. That's the way that I see it. And it's getting your fight back financially. These markets are player versus player. These spaces are player versus player. Everything is competition. And that's not necessarily that like we got to compete as a group, but like also the other thing is we still here and they done kicked our feet out from under us a million times. So like obviously the people who felt the need to do this, because every white person didn't do this. Every white person I know isn't super rich. But the fact that the best of that dominant group felt that they needed to consistently restrain us for 100 years. And we're still here, and you're still seeing us move forward. That's the reason. Because they knew what they were dealing with. And they didn't want to deal with it. Because they're not capable of competing with us. So in competition in that sense, like I don't compete in the sense that I need someone to do bad. I always look up. I always position myself to where I'm at the bottom and I work my way up. I enjoy that. I enjoy that grind. As a man, I think that's what creates a fulfilling and interesting life. So when I look at stuff like this, I'm like, oh, okay, so like this is how we were navigating. Like, oh, we was building whole cities. Like, okay. Oh, so there was some generational wealth, and like in a lot of cases, a lot of it was pilfered, looted, and destroyed. Like, yeah, like when we talk about reparations, that's the stuff that I'm looking at the government to pay for because they didn't pay for any of it. If we were to get it, but am I counting on it? Not in my lifetime. Like I'll let the Roland Martins and the low testosterone dudes get out there in the streets and cry about it. But me, I'm gonna be building. And I'm gonna build as much as I can because the more successful I am, the more vindicated these people that passed away to build something great, to build something that was gonna last and be talked about for forever. Because we're still talking about it. Like I'm not gonna forget any of this. I'm carrying it with me, and like that's part of the fire. That's the reason I can go to work at 4:30 in the morning, and then get off and get here and sit down and record this video and run these live streams every week as late as I need to like you ain't gonna compete with me. Like I barely need to sleep, and it's because I know my history. Like I know what's been done, and I'm like, cool, I'm still here. Matter of fact, I'm an improvement. I'm a problem over these dudes because not only will I work and not sleep, like if pressed, I'm gonna do what I gotta do on every metric. Like I'm not sitting out here looking like a bag of bolts. I'm not carrying myself in that way. I'm not out here tricking off money at the club constantly. You know, like I'm in stack mode, and we've got to get back to that. We've got to get back to some hard standards. Like I'm not dealing with people that are not moving forward, period, on anything. Like I'm not doing it. So this is actually my longest pre-recorded video. So anyways, I'm done ranting. This was one of my what history taught us, and like what history taught us is, in my opinion, in summation, was we did not come from poverty. We were not always impoverished. We had the capability, the smarts, and the ingenuity, the entrepreneurship, however you want to break that down, whatever it is that the people who built this country had. Well, actually, that was us too. But whatever it is, whatever reference point you want to use for any other culture outside of ours, we came from that also. And they went out of their way to try to destroy and dismantle it. But we are still here. And everybody who shares those genes and this gene pool, if you want to call it a culture, fine. Everyone of this culture has a glint of that inside of them. And there's a decision that has to be made and a switch that has to be flipped to tap into that versus the BS that we're championing right now. And it starts with stopping being a fucking victim. We'll be talking about this tonight on Guns and Butter. It's going to be a companion episode. We are going to go in deep. This is going to be episode 1 of that, and I'm going to be doing that for the next 3 weeks. We're going to be hitting different topics. But we will be talking about this tonight. So when you guys catch this, if you guys are interested in camming up, talking with me in the chat, I will be live streaming for a few hours. It's going to be a shorter episode because I'm in the process of working myself to death because I can. And yeah, we're gonna get to it. We're gonna do a quick hit on it, but it's gonna be a live open panel. If you want to come up and rap with me, most definitely do so. Love to have you guys. Definitely love my chat family over there on Guns and Butter Show over on I Seen Your Little Podcast. There will be a link to that to that channel in the description. Yeah. So we're gonna drop that. Hope you guys are gonna have. If you're not with me tonight, then we're going into Bag Fumble Friday. Do not fumble the bag. It's about time we stopped. Got to get your priorities straight. Get your finances together. That's the first step in getting your house in order. Actually, making your bed would be the first step in getting your house in order. If your bed is a mess, make your bed first thing in the morning, because then you have accomplished something. This is your boy Reckless Ray Dinero. Hopefully, I'll be seeing you later on tonight at the Guns and Butter live stream, with which I will be hosting. If not, hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will be revisiting next week for part 2 of what history has taught us.